Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
Most leaders try to manage time. Today's conversation is about how we design it and why that changes everything. Hi, I'm Gino Degregori, and welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. Today, our guest is John Coyle. He's Olympic silver medalist in speed skating, Emmy Award-winning producer and global keynote speaker. He's a Stanford graduate in product design and engineering and Kellogg MBA. He's a former Fortune 500 executive leading customer experience and innovation, creator of the concept of time expansion, helping leaders design experiences that slow time and deepen meaning. I really like that one. I'm looking forward to this conversation because a lot of our time, we're talking about every day we look at our time, right? What are we doing? How are we bringing? Everything's fast. But do we really have everything we need to be successful, right? How do we slow that down? And I think people have heard, you got to slow down to go fast. I don't know if people have heard that. I hear that all the time. What does that really mean, right? Maybe we'll have some great conversation here with John. So John, welcome to the podcast. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Gino. I'm glad to be here. I think when it comes to this conversation, the origin story for me when it comes to kindness comes from Stanford's product design program of all places.
Wow.
So in product design, and the father of design thinking, which is sort of the language of product design, this guy named David Kelly, and it's a 5-step, 6-step process, but the center of it is empathy. And so you think about like a hardcore engineering process that has empathy as its center. That's a little different.
Yeah.
It's also called human-centered design. So that's been sort of the core of my life ever since graduation. And it's led to some really amazing insights that, we'll probably get into here.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about your background from the Olympics, your experience, especially with the recent Olympics that we just did too, right?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to keep getting to play a role in the games. This would be my 5th time for 20 years in a row with the NBC as the analyst and sometimes co-producer. But, the origin story really does come back to I was at Stanford trying to be a mechanical engineer and eventually switched over to product design. And at the same time, I was also trying to be an Olympic speed skater while living in California with no coach and no training program and very little ice time. So what happened at this point in my life is I actually managed to get 12th place in the world in the sport my senior year while studying full time. So I thought I would go from 12th to 6th to 1st in the 2 years I had to prepare for the next Olympics. But I joined the Olympic team and they put me on a program that was focused entirely on fixing my weaknesses, which turns out are many and buried. And that didn't work. I went from 12th in the world to 34th in the world to not even making the U.S. team 2 years later, finishing 30th in the U.S. trials I had won 2 years prior. And so I was ready to quit, but I did sort of anchor back to design thinking, which core is empathy in this case for yourself. And are you solving the right problem? That's what they always circle back to. And fixing my weaknesses didn't seem like the right problem to solve. So I stopped doing it. So I quit the team, not the sport, trained all on my own and showed up 1 year to the day later to the exact same meet, same structure, same people, same everything. It's just not an Olympic year. It's for the World Championships. In my sport, hundreds of seconds determine first from second. And in my first race back, I broke the U.S. record by over 5 seconds. I broke the world record by over a second. I went on to set every single U.S. record back to back, which is to say fixing your weaknesses is not the way to go.
Yeah.
That ship has sailed.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you. Congratulations on your success there. And I appreciate you sharing. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that as it relates to weaknesses and strengths. So the first question that I love asking my guests is, what does being a kind leader mean to you?
I learned the hard way what it's not like. I was a consultant, and when you're in consulting, by and large, you're paid to talk. They want answers. They expect you to deliver, glossy PowerPoints, all that stuff. I then moved into industry, and I tried talking my way through being a leader and telling my team what to do. And it turns out they didn't actually like that. They found that very unkind, to the point I had a 360 review where I had one of the lowest scores out of 4,000 people in that company. So I think I have to quit. I think I'm getting fired, right? But they sent me to the Center for Creative Leadership, and they had me focus on my leadership style and ultimately the action plan. Everybody walks out of there a week later with an action plan. My action plan was so simple, I didn't believe it was going to work. But it was literally, instead of saying, here's what we should do, I should usually say, what do you think we should do? And I didn't think that was going to work, but I put that into action. And it actually all came to fruition the first day I got back to the office. The entire Midwest network went down for the wireless company. And I called my operations manager who does communications. And I was about to say, here's what we should do, Paul. And I bit my tongue. And I said, what do you think we should do? And I knew exactly what to do. So this was really hard for me.
Right.
And he's like, well, we need to issue an APB, all points bulletins. We need to hit the leaders first by 10 minutes. And I was like, and I was about to tell him, and I'm like, anything else? And he's like, let's hit our regional vice president first. She hates to be surprised. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's everything. And so I put that plan into action, and people viewed that as a form of kindness, being empowered to make decisions without being told what to do. And I went from one of the lowest ranked leaders in that company out of 4,000 to one of the top 20 scores. The next year, same people, nobody got fired, not even me.
Wow, that's amazing. And then just a little tweak there, right? I feel like you did such a big impact there in people's lives, and it's about that listening. So thank you for explaining that. And let's pull a thread on that a little bit more as it relates to, it's hard as a leader, right? You are expected to have all the answers, right? You're expected to be like, okay, well, here's my problem, and automatic, oh, well, here's how you solve it. Boom, 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 boom. But that only goes so far, right? It doesn't allow your leaders to grow, and you as the leader stay connected and stress, right? Because now you have to solve all these problems, right? Which it sounds like you found that and you shifted that. But can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's actually a framework that I learned shortly thereafter called the knower versus the learner. And it's leadership archetypes. These are not the traditional dictionary definitions, but a knower leader, which is almost every new leader, gets to position of power to lead people because they know stuff, right? They demonstrate expertise as an individual contributor, and then they get people. And then there's usually no lessons about how you do that. And so they think they need to know all of their people.
Right.
And so they say things from a good intention, like the worst words uttered in any boardroom right now, and it's happening about 10 million places. That won't work. We tried that before. Now they're saying that from a place of good intention because they did try it before and it didn't work, and they don't want you spinning your wheels. But my first question always back is, all right, when was that? And I tell you, I get the same answer a lot. 1996. And I'm like, okay, so the world has not changed in 28 years? Like, come on now.
Yeah.
So, reversing that instead and being open to the ideas of others. The math is really simple here. We know that people join companies and leave managers. And we know the number one reason that people leave managers is because they're not open to my ideas.
Yeah.
And so just being open and asking questions, even if you know all the answers, which odds are good you will as getting to a place of leadership, if you don't let the team figure stuff out for themselves, well, then you're not a leader and you're not kind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's not to say, I always have to caveat this. If the house is burning, you don't say, this is a fire extinguisher. The lever, sometimes you have to make decisions as a leader when, time is of essence. But if you do that every time, the team's they're going to literally want to.
Yeah, you don't have a team at that point. You just have people just executing and doing, right? And if you really want to build those leaders, the kind leaders, is you have to not only listen, but allow them to learn, right? And then sometimes my leadership style has always been, I kind of push the people, throw them in the water. They know I'm there, but they're like, go figure it out. Go swim, right? Go swim and figure it out. But know that if something happens, just raise your hand and I'll pull you back up, or I'll jump right in with you, or whatever it is. But as I've talked to other leaders out there, new leaders that are coming up, that's the hardest thing, because you're supposed to have the answers, like you said, right? And you do have the answers, but if you don't expand, you're not going to grow. So as it relates to strengths and weaknesses, right? Because we all have strengths and weaknesses. I like the story that you were talking about, how you shifted your mind from the way you were practicing, the things you were improving, right, in the Olympics. How does that relate into the business world? Because for the most part, when you do performance reviews or you're talking to someone, it's like, well, what are you weak on, right? How can we improve that area of your weakness, right? And that's just the norm still, right? So can you expand a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, I think it's a huge miss is that performance reviews, by and large, continue to focus on weaknesses. Now, there's skill gaps. That's fine. Like you got to learn a new operating system or whatever. But, some things are native to ourselves. And what is essential, I think, is that you find people's native talents and double down on that and design around what they're not great at, right? If you have a completely extroverted, amazing salesperson that's bad with details, don't make them do all the spreadsheets, right? Let's figure out how to, divide and conquer in a meaningful way. I'll give you two quick examples. We go to the Olympics and I'm on paper, at least the fastest guy in the team. So I'm going to be the anchor for the relay because you always get your fastest person last. It's true in track and field. Same with short track speed skating. And then, but we get there and we're skating on figure skating ice, which is super soft and slow. And I'm a big guy for my sport, so I'm struggling. And so the question became the night before the Olympic final, not a normal meeting, but we're like, all right, who's going to anchor? Coyle, you're out. All right, I knew. Next fastest guy, Andy, you're out. You're too big, too tall, too heavy. Next guy on the team's a little small, a little lighter, not as fast as us two, but he could skate on snow. So we're like, all right, maybe Randy. But then we go to our lightest, youngest, newest member of the team, also the slowest in theory on paper. And we're like, this is going to be a race of attrition. He's the only one that's going to have any juice left. Let's put our slowest skater as the anchor. Thank God we did. We were about to lose bronze position. He passed his way into silver on the last lap, almost got to gold. Point being, you hire for diversity of experience, background, and skills. And if you don't put the right person in for the right job at the right time, you've just wasted that opportunity.
Yeah. What a beautiful story. I mean, it's and you're talking about like milliseconds, right? Like really fast. Yeah. And like those little decisions shape, whether you got bronze or no medals or anything like to that. So that's great. And that happens all the time now in the real world too, right? Like I have an example that I'll share and, we kind of analyze it a little bit. We have a phenomenal kind of really high-end engineer, super smart. But we know that if you put this person into multiple projects, gets too saturated and he will not perform. But he's so good at what he does that, everybody wants him. Right. And he thrives in that. He's like, oh yeah, put me in here, put me in there. Right. But it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle to be like, no, it's like I even told him, like, I see you as our thoroughbred. You put the little blinders and you're in there in a race. You just have to focus on the race. And you do an amazing job, right? At doing that one thing. And the reason I'm sharing that is because if you don't adapt to that particular skill set, right? Because I can talk about his weaknesses. Well, better time management. Let me get you something else. Like, no, he's not good at that. Why don't we just put him on the areas where he's going to excel? Talk to the customer, talk to the engineers, right? And then don't do anything from an execution or delivery. Just stay on the pre-sales or that kind of stuff. And that allowed us to maximize his capability and allows us to 10x the company.
100%. When I came back from the Center for Creative Leadership, one of the other things I did is I had 8 direct reports, all with the same job title, which was a marketing manager. And they were divided geographically, 2 per region, and they all had the same job description. They all did the same things. When I came back, I had sort of an epiphany. Like, I've got 2 like really creative people on this team. I've got 2 real hardcore operators. I got 2 analyticals on the team, and I've got 2 people on this team. I am going to not ask for permission. I'm rejiggering the roles, and I'm going to have the people do sponsorships. I have the creative people do the advertising. I have the operations people manage all of them, and I have the analyticals do the research to feed to the creative. So we rejiggered the team, and our performance went through the roof, and everybody loved their job, a job that up until then they just checked the box. It was amazing how much difference that made to let people do what they do well.
So that's awesome. And it's true. I'm sure you're familiar with that book, Jim Collins, Good to Great, where he talks about the right people in the right seats, because sometimes you do have the right people, but sometimes they're in the wrong seat and they're not performing. And then that took me a while to realize, because it's like, this is your box. You got to stay within this box. You got to fit everything, strengths, weaknesses, and make it, improve your weaknesses as you go. But no, as I continue to lead my company on the technology side, I learn every day. It's like, okay, let's put the right people into the right places, because it does take time, but and that's where you get a lot of your experience, right, and a lot of your memories too on what to do and what not to do. So, talking about time and time expansion, right? Like that's something big that you've been talking about, right, in your career, right?
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that and how you are helping other organizations or other folks that you talk to as it relates to that?
So, I competed on the national team until I was 30. So I retired at age 30 and had to get a real job for the first time in my life. And I fortunately figured out that consulting was a way I could go to actually make money with no experience. So that worked out. And my first job was at Goldman Sachs, where I spent a year with 2,000 other people trying to make 1 second happen, which was Y2K. But I had this insight at the time that in sports, hundreds of seconds, tenths of seconds fundamentally changed your trajectory as an athlete. You made the team or you didn't. You got on the podium or you didn't. You won a gold medal or you didn't. All of those are little tiny, tiny increments of time. And the thing that I realized in the real world is it's the same thing. You got off the exit or you didn't. You started the podcast or you didn't. Like, plenty of work can come into a decision, but the decision tends to come in moments. You avoided the car accident, you didn't. Took the job promotion across town or you didn't. You asked the girl out or you didn't. She said yes or she didn't, right? Like, all of these fundamental trajectory changing things tend to happen in moments. And we forgot. We pretend that time is this linear thing and that each second equals the last. The Greeks knew this thousands of years ago. They had two words for time, chronos and kairos. Chronos being clock time, the way we use it, trains, planes, and automobiles arriving on time. But kairos time, which they use 2/3 of the percentage of in written texts, is human time. And the deeper analysis is when everything happens at once and the trajectory is reset. And kairos moments are what life is about, right? Every once in a while, we get one of these handed to us. We can design them. We can gift them to others. But ultimately, I think the fundamental basis of life is that kairos moments determine our perspective on time. And the more of those you can have, the more expansive your life seems. It's an Abraham Lincoln quote you're probably familiar with. But it's not the years in your life that matter. It's the life in your years.
Wow, man, you just said a lot.
We can unpack.
Let's unpack this. I'm intrigued, right? Like I never heard the quote Chronos and Kairos because I believe in that. It's like the presence, right? Like really, I think people are so caught up in time, right? Everything is linear. Everything has that. But if you take a minute and pause for a second, right, and really appreciate that the now, the moment, right? That's what I've been learning the last 6 years, to be honest. And everything just seems so is happier for me too, right? Because there's so much abundance in my life. So do you mind expanding a little bit more on that?
Well, I'll give you a couple of sort of guidelines to way to think about Kairos time. And the first, which is basically the entire sum of my forthcoming book in one sentence, is the value of an increment of time is not related to its duration. I'll say it again because it's a lot to think about. The value of an increment of time is not related to its duration. That means you could be working with somebody for weeks, months, years, and the entire relationship hinges on a few words in a conversation, and then everything is different. And that happens in real life all of the time. And when you can make more of these moments where you say the right thing at the right time to the right person in the right environment, then everything is different. And that's what we're really talking about here. I'll give you an example if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
And it's the only reason we're here. I mean, this is the only reason I'm here. Because I was gifted a Kairos moment by a parent of a speed skater a number of years ago. Actually, I can tell you exactly when. It was February 26th of 2006.
Wow.
So the anniversary just took place a couple of days ago, 20-year anniversary. I competed in the first Olympics. I got a silver medal. That was, in my head, first loser. We're all competitive that way.
Right.
4 more years. And then I rejoined the Olympic team and started focusing on my weaknesses again, which was a huge miss. And I ended up not making the team. So now I'm a one-timer first loser. So that's how I identified for the next 8 years. I didn't watch, didn't talk about it. It had nothing to do with the sport. Went on, got a real life. And but then NBC asked me to be their analyst for the 2006 games. Couldn't say no to that. So I'm back at the Olympics, different role. Everybody knew who I was. I was warmly welcomed back. I knew who most of those kids were. I'm no longer kids. But it was the night before the gold medal round. And I'm still a one-timer first loser. It's still the way I think about myself. And it's the night before the gold medal round, which is always the last night before the closing ceremonies. And we're sitting at dinner. My job was to interview the parents, coaches, and skaters, get the backstories. And so I'm sitting at dinner with a skater to my right and his dad across from me. And his dad suddenly says to me, "Hey, I need to tell you something." I was like, okay. He looked nervous, making me anxious. I'm like, what did I do? So we walk away from the table. He's just, "I want you to just hear this. We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you." And I said, "I don't know what you mean." He said, "You don't remember probably, but 12 years ago, after you won your silver medal, you brought it to a little reception in Bay City, Michigan. I brought my son, Alex. He was 11 years old at the time. He'd never skated before. The next day, he joined the Bay City Speed Skating Club. Tomorrow, he's skating in the gold medal final."
Wow.
Talk about a Kairos moment. My entire life changed in those 15 seconds, is 20 seconds. I got my daughter involved. She started skating. I started coaching the local club, which I did for 8 years. I started announcing at the meets. I continued to be the analyst. And most importantly, I started talking about this.
Yeah.
And this is all I do for a living now is I am a keynote speaker and I tell the story at the end of almost every talk. I've done it in 19 countries now.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, John. And it's the way I interpret that is like the impact that you're making in people's lives, right? And there's a thing that I've been saying for a while, and that is generational impact, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know they're talking about generational wealth, but imagine now, right, what you just did, that comment you made to that little kid, and now he, I don't know if he placed or not, but he was, doing on the
One
gold
runs on. Yeah.
bronze medal. Yeah, absolutely. So now I'm sure it's a generational thing, because he's probably doing the same thing and impacting people's lives. It's that little word. I never, I never understood it from that perspective, but I have many moments in my life that I remember that were very impactful. And you remember it because it actually impacted you. But if you're impacting others, you're not going to remember it as much because it didn't impact you emotionally, right? And we remember our emotions, right? Like whether you're happy, sad, or mad, or, it's like that's what you really remember. I mean, I've been married with my wife, and I'm a little sappy here, for 23 years. And I remember
Amazing.
the first time I met her in college, 99, walking into a chemistry class, and she was sitting in the front. Nobody was sitting next to her. And I made that split decision right there to sit right next to her.
Your whole life.
In my whole life that I have now is because of that decision I made. I could have easily, like, you know what? I don't think you want to talk to me. Let me keep going. All right, go find another seat, right? That's crazy, right? To think about that. I got 3 kids, 20, 18, and 13, and all, running a business, all those different things that are in my life that are great things. I'm very grateful and from that moment. And I think that's what you're talking about here, right?
100%. My story with my girlfriend's somewhat similar, and we've been together almost 3 years as of April 8th.
Nice, congrats.
And what happened was I had been dating a lot of singular dates, no second dates, just didn't like anybody. And I'm not one to approach a stranger. That's not really my game. The dating apps were very useful for that. But I'm in the gym and I see this woman on the treadmill, and I just, for some reason, I'm like, that's her. That's the one. And so I interrupted her, which is totally rude. I would never normally do, like completely out of norm for me. I asked her if she was going to be there for minutes. I went upstairs. I got a copy of my book. I signed it. I think I love you. And I gave it to her. And now 3 years later, here we are.
That's amazing. So if anybody was listening and needed a little extra nudge, right? Just
sometimes you got to listen to your gut.
You just got to make it happen, right? Make it happen. But, it's funny. We talk about time, right? And I think you talk about time as an investment as well, right?
Yes.
Not a resource. So I would love to learn a little bit about that as well. How do you, advise and when you're talking to folks as it relates to their time? Because, me as a CEO, I'm constantly, my time is my resource. Everything that I'm spending, I need to make sure that I'm investing in the right things. If not, the yield of that is not going to happen, right? And it's going to continue to get delayed. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I love this concept of time capital that I've been talking about now for a couple of years. And this is the notion that, just as we invest our money, we also invest our time, and we want returns. And, I can guess, Gino, that you don't have all your money under your mattress in your house. If you do, I'd like to know where you live. And you don't have it all in cash, right?
Right.
So you don't keep it all in low risk, short-term investments like CDs. You don't keep it all in high risk, short-term unicorn crypto. I mean, unless you're just a crypto person. So you have, some in stocks, some in bonds, some in cash, some in maybe a little bit in high risk, high return stuff.
Right.
I do a lot of work now with family offices and ultra high net worth individuals, and they are laboring under the misconception that they can invest their time into safe short-term investments and get returns, and it doesn't work that way. Wow. Being risk-free, building a safe, comfortable bulwark around your life is a recipe for a very short life. Yeah. You have to go big to the big risks for the big rewards, and it's really easy to use your money to make your time shrink to nothing. Time and money are fungible, and we spend all our lives learning how to trade our time for money. Trading your money for time is what financially successful people should be doing, and that necessarily involves some level of risk. And most people aren't real comfortable with that idea. But once they get there, they realize that's all my great moments. All of my great moments had a risk element.
Absolutely. So what do you recommend for folks as it relates to, like, let's just take an example, like as it relates to how so it's just basically paying attention and taking more risks in their day-to-day decisions for their time, or how, just trying to understand it better?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'll do the quick 3 laws. There's the first law is this notion that time will speed up the older you get. This is the law of contraction, this notion that time speeds up. And the metaphor of water flowing is often used with time. And I'm going to use the metaphor of a garden hose with a fixed flow of water. When you shrink the aperture for a fixed flow of water through a garden hose, what happens to the speed of the water? It speeds up.
Yep.
Right? Put your thumb over it, you can spray farther. Put a nozzle on it, you can spray even farther. I think our brains are shrinking our sort of flow of time the older we get. And for the aperture of this flow, let's use base equals breadth of experience. How many novel experiences, unique experiences you're having. And the one that people miss a lot is depth of experience, emotional intensity. Mm-hmm. 8-year-olds, everything is new, exciting, scary, fun, dangerous, right? Like the whole world is this big playground, and first win, first loss, first crush, first heartbreak, first kiss. Everything is new, exciting, wonderful, terrible. They cry a lot. Their aperture for time is wide open. It circles through. Summers last forever. People get into middle age, and they condense this, right? They de-risk their lives. Mm-hmm. They do the same vacations. They go to the same places for lunch. They go to the same work every day. Like everything starts to become routine, and their aperture for time shrinks, and time speeds up. And a decade in middle age can feel like a summer as an 8-year-old. So you got to do new, exciting, fun, sometimes risky things. You don't have to kill yourself. So that's the first law. The second law, and we can unpack any of these. I know we'll run out of time, but the second law that everybody gets wrong is that the way we experience time in the now, in the present, is often, almost always, inversely proportional to how we remember it. Mm-hmm. So if it seems like a long, boring day that lasts forever, and memory shrinks to nothing because there's nothing to remember, and the first day of vacation, as fast as it might have seemed, that sunset suddenly is there. In retrospect, you're like, oh my God, this whole day we went up a walk on the beach. We had an amazing dinner. I held my spouse's hand. We watched the green flash, like whatever, right? You have all these memories you can unpack. And even though it feels fast, and memory expands, and memory is what matters when it comes to your sense of time. Yeah. You are the sum of your memories. Yep. And then the last one I'll leave you with, which was really this gift that was given to me, these Kairos moments where time expands well beyond sort of normal boundaries, right? Those 15 seconds were literally worth a decade for me. Yeah. That changed my life probably by more than decades. And so every once in a while, we can design moments for others that have absolutely stellar impacts, or for ourselves. And the 5 key drivers are risk and uncertainty. Nobody likes it, but that's just the reality. It wakes up the brain. It writes memories 60 times faster when it's looking, it's paying attention. Emotional intensity, physical intensity, probably the least important, but it can be very useful. Beauty, trauma also works, sadly. We'll remember beautiful moments, traumatic moments. The brain is wired to remember 2 things when it comes down to it. Never do that again, or always do that again. Don't die, you procreate. Right. That's why you're going to remember the near-death car accident, and you remember that first kiss forever, and it'll be top of mind. And then the last one is the flow state, if you're familiar with that. That's being your best self, doing your very best work. That's a multiplying factor of 5x over top of the 60x we already got. So you're going to write down and store 300 times more memories in this kind of scenario than others. And so those are the kinds of things you want to design for yourself and for others.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, it goes back to, thank you for breaking that down. And I know we're probably going to run out of time if we start unpacking all of them, but it really resonated with me. A lot of things that you said from taking a risk. Because when I talk about, we actually had this exercise with my family over the holidays, and we were writing down memories. Like, what do you remember from last year that you're thankful for, or something like that? And every single thing that people remember was, and then the family days is the things we did from as a family going somewhere, a trip that we did, right? And because we go outside of the norm, right? Like to your point, it's like we're so wired that we're doing a day-to-day stuff that we do day-to-day. We're not going to remember, right? But when we take ourselves outside of the norm, we're like, whoa, what is this, right? Like take the risk or take another. It's like you really remember. And I love what you said. I never heard it said like this before. We're the sum of our memories, right? Our lives or our beliefs. And that's a big thing, because for me is, as I'm in my mid 40s now, and for me, it's all about creating that good memories, not only for myself, but for my family, right? So how do I go about doing that? Whether I help them with homework, whether I help them with advice, or just doing the normal dad thing or husband thing, it's just checking the box. But how do I expand a little more? I was talking to my kid this weekend. He's in college right now, sophomore. And there's one thing he said, he's like, I always remember what you told me, Dad, as it relates to life is what we create, and it starts in our thoughts, right? Our thoughts, everything that we do starts in our thoughts. And this is what I'm telling others as it relates to having good thoughts will create good things for you instead of continuing to latch onto the negative thing. And I was like, what? Like, you were listening to me? You actually heard. And it's like, yeah, that this is how I am. So my point to all of that is to everything that you've been saying, it's very valid. And I love this conversation because it definitely continues to validate everything that we're doing here, right? The message we want to put as it relates to being a kind leader, right? Wrapping that back up to what does it mean to be a kind leader, to your point, right? Is really, helping others, leading that with empathy and focusing and providing that value to your colleagues or employees or even leaders out there and letting them know, hey, they do matter, right? And here's an opportunity for you to grow and expand and make sure you're investing in time and in yourself at the end of the day.
100%. I mean, time is our most valuable currency. I believe this, you only hear this here, but that memories are the currency of time. So the greatest gift of kindness you can give is the gift of time.
Yeah.
And I got advice for you as a dad. You ready?
Yeah.
You're not going to like it, but you already know it. Design fear and suffering into your vacations. So let me expand. We know that we are wired to remember stories.
Yeah.
Right. We don't remember facts. We don't remember data. We don't remember analytics, but we always remember stories. And the thing about stories is all great stories have plot. All plots have a crisis. If you don't have a crisis, you don't have a plot. You don't have a plot, you won't remember it. Therefore, you must design fear and suffering into your vacations. It's just basic logic. I'll give you an example, if I may.
Yeah.
So I get invited to speak. This would be 8 years ago now in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And they flew my daughter and I first class, picked us up in Escalade, took us to this hotel, had its own pool in our room. We could have just stayed there with the open mini bar, cocktails, kiddie cocktails, and enjoyed the sunsets. And that would have been it. But I said, hey, you want to walk to the town along the beach? And she's on to me a little bit. She's like, how far is that? And I said, I think it's about an hour. And I did. I thought it was an hour and a half. So we leave at 4:00. We were an hour in. She's like, are we almost there? I'm like, I think so. About 5:30, an hour and a half in, the sun does that thing it does in the tropics. It just dumps in the ocean, disappears because there's no real twilight. And now it's dark, and then the sand turns to coral. And now we're 2 hours in. Our feet are bleeding. She's crying. It's hot. We're thirsty. We're starving. We're 2 hours in. We don't want to go 2 hours back. 2 more hours. 2 more hours. We're starving, thirsty, bleeding, and we get to town. And she looks at me fiercely and says, this is going to be the best dinner of my life. And it could have been a hot dog. It wouldn't have mattered. But I remember it well. We sat down at a little Argentinian place, wood table. We ordered appetizers and entrees. Appetizer came. It was a goat cheese stuffed squid with a light white wine, lemon butter sauce with a sprig of parsley. This is 8 years ago. I can smell it and taste it now. Oh, my gosh. Because we had a story.
Yeah.
So, international travel will pretty much guarantee you a story.
Yeah.
But that's my advice too.
That's amazing. No, I like that. And you don't think about that. You want to create this perfect scenario, like trip. And I think it's the adventure that, to your point, right, that we really remember to tell the story. So you remember like this and this and that. And that's what really resonates with people. And thank you for sharing. That's amazing. I'm sure your daughter still remembers that every day too, right? So,
oh, sure.
It's a good. Well, great. So I know I'm watching time here, making sure that we have enough time to continue some of these additional segments. But there's this segment called Flip the Mic, where I let my guests ask me a question. Do you have a question for me?
I do. It's a question / challenge for you.
Okay.
In the next year, Gino,
yes,
what's something you're going to do for your family to create an indelible memory that has a before and after? I know that's a hard one to answer on the spot, but
I think actually no. It's for talking about trips, right? We are going to Japan for 16 days in July.
Wow, amazing!
And right now, my wife and I have been kind of coordinating and looking through different things. We thought we wanted to get a travel agent to kind of handle all this stuff. It's like, no, that's not fun. Like, let's you and I figure it out. And she's such a nervous, anxious traveler, right? She needs everything to be just so, and right. I'm more the adventure. Let's just figure it out, like create those memories, those challenges that you're talking about. And it's going to be fun. And I do want to make sure that we experience it. Like, to your point, let's go in a little bit deep, right? And let's not get into trouble, but let's go into the culture, understand it a little bit more. We're going to stay not only in the city, several cities, Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, and then around Mount Fuji, there's also an area where I want to also kind of show them the tranquility of another country and being able to just be in the now and the present, right? So It's a good question, and I think I'm ready for it. I've been looking forward to taking my family and giving them that experience. I want them to remember this always. And for every good thing, there's always challenges. So the challenges are there for us to learn, experience it. That's what we're here for, right? And that's why I keep telling everybody, and that I know is do the things that feel good and that take care of others and take care of people and lead with that kindness, with that empathy. And you will generate that impact, that generational impact in people's lives. So.
And I would just summarize for your trip, think of it this way. When life gives you choices on this trip and in regular life, choose the one that makes the best story. Not the hardest, not the easiest, not even the most fun, the one that's going to lead to some kind of story, right? You can go left to this place, or you can go right to this place. Let's go whichever one looks like there's going to be a story there.
And I love it. I'm gonna use that if you don't mind. I love that. Choose the one that can create the best stories. I like that. Awesome, John. Thank you for the question. All right, rapid fire questions. What's one book that you recommend?
I am in love with a book called Wind, Sand, and Stars by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm not sure if I said that right. He's notable for a few reasons. It won a Nobel? What's the Pulitzer? I don't know. One of those big prizes. He's famous not for this book, though. He's actually famous for another book that probably everybody's read, which is Little Prince, the children's book.
Oh, okay.
This is about his adventures flying for the French mails in the early days of the airplane, and it's absolutely spellbinding. One of the greatest writers, I think, ever to grace this planet. So that would be my recommendation.
Nice. Awesome. What's a mantra or quote that you like to say daily or weekly or whatever?
Besides, when life gives you choices, choose the one that makes the best story. I have a personal mantra that I repeat to myself that I don't think I'll share the whole thing, but that I am calm, I am strong, I love, and I'm loved.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. What's one leadership habit that makes time feel smaller?
I think this whole concept of trying to just like micromanage time and slot everything into little windows is a misuse of it. It's pretending that Chronos time is real. And when the reality is we know darn well the way we experience time is anything but linear, right? Speeds up, slows down. You go into a boring business meeting and look at your watch after what seems like 3 hours and 20 minutes has gone by. Yeah. Your best friend flies in from out of town and you're sitting down having a coffee or a cocktail. And after what seems like 20 minutes, 3 hours has gone by, right? Like, so the way we experience time is anything but linear. And so recognizing the nonlinear of time and designing your time for those kinds of high return investments, that's what we need to be.
Beautiful, beautiful. If you could have coffee with somebody that's with us or no longer with us, who would it be and why?
That's a good one. I would have to say I would go back to Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. This man lived like 10 lives. He did so many different things. So just to close out his story, he flew through the mails, and then at 45, I think he was 45 when the World War II broke out, and they told him he was too old to fly on missions against the Nazis. So he somehow managed to sneak his way in anyways, and he became, a martyr in the war against the Nazis as basically a hidden candidate over the age because he wanted to do right by his country.
Wow. Amazing. Oh, thank you for sharing. I would love to hear that. Have coffee with him too. Awesome. Well, thank you, John. And let me talk to the audience here. Like, if this conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who feels like maybe time is flying by and the concept of time, slow it down, right? Or leadership feels a little bit heavy and you really want to learn more about, what's it mean to be a kind leader and make sure you're building that out. You never know who needs to hear it. So please share this, send it out. We're really trying to push this and having great guests like John here joining us. So thank you. So please share it. So John, thank you very much for joining us. And where can people find you?
It's just johnkcoyle.com. Everything's there. Blogs, articles, books, forthcoming third book coming soon called Counterclockwise, How to Design Endless Summers.
Oh, I like that one. Okay.
But yeah, johnkcoyle.com, Coyle. It's really easy.
Awesome. Any final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, we touched on it earlier, but this is a really passion point for me is that time and money are fungible. We spend years and decades building our financial success. I imagine most of your audience is financially successful. There comes a time you need to start trading your money for time and investing it in the kinds of things that will bring the kinds of returns that you want from your financial portfolio. And that necessarily means it's not all low risk, short-term investments.
That's right. That's right. Love it. Love it. Great. Thanks. So thanks, John, for joining us, for providing such a great perspective about time and learned so much. I got a page full of notes here. So I appreciate you. And, definitely I really enjoyed this conversation very much.
Same here, Gino. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And for our listeners out there, thank you for being part of the Kind Leader podcast. Remember, be kind, bring value, rise together. Have an amazing day.